Hey Google now, what is a Droid Turbo? Welcome, my friends, to the new honest review of the Verizon Droid Turbo. This is a fancy, sleek, top-of-the-line phone exclusively from Verizon Wireless in the United States. This is the fall of 2014, spring of 2015, soon to be happening here. Stand by for a fanboy-free look and honest review at this brand new fancy flagship phone from the guys at Verizon and Motorola. Wow, what a phone do we have here? This has been described as a Moto X on steroids, or a Moto X with the volume buttons turned all the way up to level 11, if you get that joke. Basically, this is a fantastic top-of-line flagship phone that is not a phablet. It is 5.2-inch screen size, so it does fit comfortably in your hand. Compared to some of the bigger phones like the iPhone 6 Plus or the Nexus 6, which are approaching too big for one-handed use size. The new Droid Turbo is a spec beast. It has a quad HD display. It has a 21 megapixel rear-facing camera. It has a 3,900 milliamp hour battery. It has all these different specs, top end of everything, but does that make it a killer phone? I've always said that specs don't really matter, and I still to this day believe that that's true. But it is impressive and it is important to take all these things into consideration when reviewing this phone and when giving you my honest sort of thoughts about it. I will say that I do like this phone. You are going to hear some criticisms of it as usual, but I do like this phone. I think that they've basically taken the Moto X and improved it. The design I think is better in my opinion. This is a Kevlar reinforced back. There's also a nylon version that's out on the market right now. They've gotten rid of that dimple that I complained about with the Moto X 2014. They've removed that sort of ugly round ring flash and replaced it with just two standard flash LEDs, which is nice. I could do without the Droid and Verizon branding on it, but whatever, that's fine. There is no creakiness to this phone. It does not feel flimsy. Verizon and Motorola do claim that you can actually get it wet. They say that it's water resistant, splash proof, whatever you want to call it. There is an unlocked SIM slot in here as well. And so I'm actually using this phone with a GSM carrier, which is nice. You don't have to have Verizon. You can actually pull the SIM slot out from here and put a non-Verizon SIM in and use it worldwide, which is awesome. It does have a turbocharging micro USB slot, which we'll talk about here in a little bit. One of the other elements of design that I appreciate is that it does have a front-facing speaker, which is nice to have when, typically like with your iPhone, it's on the bottom, and so it can kind of become distorted and obstructed. But this is nice that it's up front, projects the sound at the user. The screen is fantastic. It's an AMOLED screen, so you get the power-saving benefits of only illuminating the pixels that are in use. You do get the sort of hands-free Motorola suite of software that comes with the phone, which you've seen in the Moto X, where you can wave your hand in front of it to give you your active notifications. You can preview your I don't have any notifications right now, but you can preview them by just tapping on the screen and not actually turning the phone on. Screen, Quad HD, like I said, ridiculous amount of pixels, fantastic to look at, great color accuracy, awesome sort of viewing angles, awesome in terms of its just color reproduction. I'm a fan of AMOLED. I do tend to like LCD better. I do think that some of the other phones out there offer a nicer display. I do think the brightness on this isn't as bright as some of the other phones out there. I mean, we'll just, for argument's sake, we'll pull out the iPhone here and just talk a little bit about the two. These guys are both on full brightness. You can see that the iPhone is just a tad bit brighter. The colors are a little bit different. Again, it's a different screen technology, so that's going to be why. So, in my opinion, I prefer the colors and the brightness on the iPhone over the Droid Turbo, but that doesn't mean by any means that this is a bad display. It's a brilliant display, and it's really, really nice. Talking more again about just the size, again, 5.2-inch screen size, fantastic, almost perfect in my opinion. I do like these smaller, what are now considered smaller size phones. I don't like 5+ inches very much, but 5.2 in this phone just feels good. It might have to do with the sort of rounded back, just the way that the phone is designed and shaped. Fits my hand really, really well. I'm a fan of this screen size. I didn't think I would like 5.2 inches, but it does fit my hand pretty nicely on this phone. Thickness-wise, the phone is pretty thick. Again, if we compare it to one of the thinner phones on the market, or maybe even the thinnest phone, I'm not sure, but it's very much thicker than the iPhone 6. But that is partially to squeeze in that huge battery. And so heft-wise as well, Droid Turbo, substantially heftier than the iPhone 6. Doesn't feel nearly. I mean, like I said, it does feel good in your hand. When you compare it to the iPhone 6, it's a different feeling. The iPhone 6 has a premium build with its aluminum, and does feel really nice in your hand as well. But the Droid Turbo, much thicker, much heavier, much more substantial in your hand. But like I said, it's not creaky, it's not flimsy like a Galaxy series. I don't know if it's going to bend, but it is a great phone to hold on to. Brilliant build quality, brilliant build materials, and definitely a joy to hold on to. Screen brightness, both these guys are turned up to full brightness on each. You can see that the color cast quite a bit different between these two phones. Viewing angles are both great. AMOLED here on the Droid Turbo compared to IPS LCD on the iPhone 6. They both are phenomenal screens, but I do prefer the colors and the brightness on the iPhone 6 over the Droid Turbo. It is still a very bright phone. It is still a marvelous screen, but you can see from yourself here in the video, color cast a little bit different, a little more white on this phone, a little more gray, muted colors on the Droid Turbo. Battery life on this phone has been nothing short of phenomenal. I wouldn't call it 2 days like the marketing hype sort of surrounds the phone, but I would absolutely call it 1 day plus. Take a look at some of these stats I have here. We've got 1 day, 10 hours, 30 minutes on battery, and I'm down to 4%. That's pretty darn good. And if we go back to the screen time, see, screen is 34% of that. If we go back and look at the actual stats for the screen, I got over 5.5 hours of screen time on, which is just unreal. That is an outstanding battery, especially with a screen that's this big, this bright, this nice. So the battery is probably one of the best features of this phone. Now, also to talk more about the battery, we've got the turbocharger, which is one of the hyped device or accessories with this phone as well. So here's a look at what the turbocharger looks like, and you can see some of the instructions or descriptions here on the back. The turbo power only is output to turbo-enabled devices. So if you were thinking you can like plug in your Nexus or something and get turbo charging out of it, it's not going to work. It's going to output at one of these sort of standard outputs, 5 volts, 1.6 amps, which is pretty typical. But if you look at the output, actually for turbo, 12 volts, 1.2 amps, that's a lot of juice. That's, I'm not an electrician, but I think that might be double or even more coming out of this bad boy when you plug in a turbo-enabled device. And so really cool to have that feature. Another cool feature of the power system is this does include wireless charging. So I have a Qi-enabled wireless charging dock that I just plop that bad boy down onto, and the wireless charging takes over and it charges it up rather quickly. Talk a little bit about the camera in here. The camera is a 21 megapixel camera with a dual LED flash on the back. And the short answer is it's inconsistent. It does take good quality photos when it wants to, outside and in good light. And even the indoor available light shots aren't bad, but it's still not that great. There's still a bit of shutter lag. There's still a bit of sort of inconsistent images, and it doesn't give me confidence as a mobile photographer to use this phone when I compare it to other top of the line camera phones like the 6. I'll just give you guys an example here of some of the lag. We'll launch the camera app, and we will take a sample shot here, and you can see the bit of lag I'm talking about. We'll press Now, compare that to the iPhone 6, where you launch the camera and you focus, and let me just get it here so you can see it. You focus and then hit the button and boom, there's your shot. And so you can see the difference there in terms of sort of speed of the camera application. So hopefully a software update will fix that, but for now, the camera is just sort of so-so. I mean, quality, like I said, results are mixed, but in general, they are pretty decent. There's just some bugs in the software, like Android in general is buggy, but we'll get into sort of more application-related things now and talk about software. There is a lot of Verizon bloat on here. There's Droid Zap and caller name ID and cloud and 3 messaging apps: Message Plus, Messaging, and Hangouts. I only use Hangouts. I don't want the other two. NFL Mobile. We don't watch the NFL up here in Alaska. We watch snowmobiling and sled dog racing. And anyway, but anyway, my point is that I don't appreciate the Verizon bloat. I wish they would leave it out. I wish that they would just give us the Play Store and that's it. It's more stock Android look and feel. And in addition to that stock Android statement, I'd like to talk about the fact that this phone is already behind. It's running 4.4.4, I believe, and that is no longer top of the line Android. Android is now version 5L Lollipop. And who knows when the Motorola Droid Turbo will get Android 5 Lollipop. If this were an iPhone, it would get it immediately. But now us Android people, primarily people with OEMs that are outside of Nexus devices, have to wait, and they wait for an indefinite amount of time. I mean, sure, the companies promise us updates, and I have no doubt in my mind that Motorola will update this phone to Android 5. It's just a question of when. And Android 5 is a huge update, and so I'm really looking forward to seeing how this device performs on Android 5 when it's rolled out. I'm going to give you guys a little demonstration here of this lag I'm talking about. Both phones have all their applications closed. They're both on Wi-Fi, so they're both sort of starting at the same point. I'm going to tap on the Chrome icon at the same time, and you're going to see how much faster the iPhone launches this application. Now, it doesn't necessarily mean that the Droid Turbo is slow, but you could see that little bit of lag, the sort of application lag, that is very frustrating in this device. Now, does that mean the phone is slow? By no means is it slow. It's not slow at all. It's just slower than some of the other top-of-the-line phones like the iPhone 6, and that's a little bit frustrating, a little bit disappointing. So where does that leave us in terms of my recommendation for this phone? Well, I really, let me stress that again, really like this phone. I think it is probably the best smartphone, again, non-phablet, so we're talking regular phone here, for somebody that uses and appreciates the things that I like. It's a great build. It's maybe not as premium as, metal construction like on the iPhone, but for what it is, it's very solid. It doesn't feel cheap. It feels great. The camera in it is decent. Again, I don't think it's perfect, but it is a good enough camera. The screen is outstanding. The colors and the pop and just the AMOLED and the features of the screen, like the sort of instant notifications, preview, that sort of thing, works great. The Google Now voice integration works great. The wireless charging and the turbo charging work great. I mean, this phone is a powerhouse. The only things you'd have to consider when buying it or dealing with it are the fact that it's non-rootable at the moment, it doesn't have Android 5, and that who knows if Verizon will update this thing in the near future. There's a little bit of bloat to deal with. There's a little bit of questions about the release date of Android 5. But overall, a very solid phone, an excellent performer, a powerhouse, a beast, a great device to have in your pocket. Take a look at the Motorola Droid Turbo. I think you'll be pleasantly surprised. Don't forget to check out everything else I have on YouTube, guys, and rate, comment, and subscribe. Thanks.